And I wore this shirt, so I want you all to see my shirt. So I am one of the more than 40 million American adults that struggles with anxiety. And not only do I sweat, and sweat has been part of my life for decades, but I have that heart that is that cartoon heart. I have shortness of breath, and I lose my words, and I am a woman with so many words. And so here I am with my words. It's 1995. Yes, it is 1995 in San Francisco. My landlady just raised the rent to $750, and I was so pissed. I was like, I can't afford that. I was angry with her, and I loved my apartment. For those of you that know the city, it was in Laurel Heights, and it was a one-bedroom for $750. A smart person would get a roommate and move to a cheaper apartment, but what do? I decide that I need to buy a condo. So I quickly engaged a realtor who looked at my salary. I'm a social worker. I was a therapist in an addiction clinic. She said, Mary, on $48,000 a year, there's not much that you can buy with that vision that you have. And I had a big vision. Stick Queen Anne, Victorian, view, the 12-foot ceilings, the whole thing. And what she showed me were like those motels that are eventually converted into condos. Very sad. But Lynn had an idea. Lynn said, Mary, you could be part of a tenants in common. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a group of people, often strangers, that decide to buy a building together. You become part of a jumbo loan. So if somebody defaults, you either pay or the whole loan is defaulted upon. And smart people would say, ooh, scary. I said, sign me up. Yes, tenants in common, here I come. And there was my jewel in San Francisco at 2130A Sutter Street, top flat in Lower Pacific Heights, Stick Queen Anne, 1887. And my top floor had been whitewashed and it needed color because despite my debilitating anxiety and sweating for 55 years, there's nothing pastel about me, nothing. So I interviewed painters, and this painter wanted $8,000, another one wanted 10, and then 12. And my joy soon turned to just despair because I couldn't paint a 1,000 square foot apartment with 12-foot ceilings and crown molding and Cillian medallions, and it was really beautiful. And then one day, on a mountain bike ride, because every Bay Area resident mountain bikes in the morning before work, I met somebody named Bill. We all have a Bill in our life. Just think about who yours is. I met Bill. Bill joined us on the ride. He had coffee with us, and wouldn't you know, as he listened to my woes of painting, he said, Mary, I'm a painter. I said, you are? Shut up, Bill. So Bill came home with me, and he looked at the apartment, and he said, I can do this for $2,000. And I was like, fuck yes. I said, Bill, you are hired. I didn't know Bill's last name. I had no referrals. I just knew his name was Bill, and he could paint my beautiful Stick Queen Anne for $2,000 because I only had $2,000 left after buying this apartment. So that was May. I paid him a third of that money. He came with paints and tarps and all the painting things. And then May turned into June. And then June turned into July. And for those of you of an age and remember Murphy Brown and Candice Bergen, there was a man named Eldon. Bill became my Eldon. July became August. I saw Labor Day in my beautiful jaguar green walls and the mint ceiling and the burgundy and the pink. And he spent a month painting one medallion, gold leaf paint that I didn't ask for. And it was pretty, but a month. And then Bill wouldn't show up. And then his friend was hospitalized after a bad BCP trip. And then his bike was stolen. And then his car was stolen. And then he just overslept. And I didn't even know where he lived. Maybe Emeryville, maybe in his Nissan truck. I never knew. So one day in August, I worked at Kaiser in Lower Pacific Heights, and I walked up Fillmore Street, and I got brave and big and found all of my words, sweating all the way back to my apartment. It was a half-a-mile walk. And I was going to go in and see Bill, and was going to have all these big words for him. So I'm all puffed and big and brave, and I walk up 46 stairs, and I sweat anyways, but I'm sweating. Bill, it's Mary. Bill. No, Bill. I go to the kitchen. He's not there, but I know he's there because his truck is in the front of the house. Not in the front parlor, not in the back parlor. And as I'm walking down my long hallway, I lean into the bedroom, and he is sleeping, not on my bed, in my bed. And he was never invited. I never invited Bill. And I froze. And it wasn't just the heat and the sweat that some of us know that happens. It was under boob sweat, underarm sweat, top of the palm, back of the knees. And I said nothing. Most people would say, "Are you fucking kidding me, Bill?" And I stood there vibrating and not breathing and no words and sweating. The schwitz was awful. And I turned around and I left. And all the way down Fillmore Street, I got brave and I found my words. And the next day I said, "We're done, Bill. Here's your last check." And the moral of the story is, you get what you pay for. Thank you.